this is your first time joining one of our ATS University series, you may not recognize the face and the voice, but my name is Zach, and I've got my email there, zach@atsspec.com. I am the Market Development National Accounts Manager for our team, working with engineers and architects all across Canada, as well as parts of the US, in helping them get their firms set up, get their masters organized on the system, and providing training like this for individual firms. Part of my role is also managing and organizing and executing our ATS University series, all these webinars that we've been doing. And later on the presentation, I'll show you how you can find any of our previously recorded sessions, which is as good of a segue as possible into the note that, hey, this is being recorded, as with all of our other sessions. We have everyone muted upon entry, but I will be keeping an eye on the Q&A and the chat fields along the way. So please feel free to raise any questions. I know we've got a series of experts that join us, and today is one of our leading experts from our manufacturers on infection prevention and control. I know one of my contacts I use frequently to answer any of my tough questions. You know, I can handle a lot of the product questions that come my way, but anytime there's kind of that outlier, that oddball code question, Corey Macy from Franke is a terrific resource. I don't even know your official title anymore, Corey. Just doer of all things, knower of many.
Yeah, pretty much. Commercial Product Development Manager. Mouthful.
Taking that code knowledge and making products that best suit it for the area that we're talking about. So for today, we're going to be talking about engineered infection prevention. This is an AIA approved course as well. So if you are in the US, at the end, there will be a link that you can take down the number and self-report. If you have any challenges with that, please take down my email. Feel free to send us your AIA number, and we'll work with Franke on getting the reporting completed after the fact. For all those in Canada, or if you don't need the certification number, our standard process is to send out a certificate of attendance that goes out on Friday for all those that join our ATS University sessions. Of course, it wouldn't be me if I didn't know that if you would like a deeper dive into this or any of the other subjects that we've done, if you want it specific for your firm, you can reach out to me. I'll get my team to set up a lunch and learn for your team, or just a standard product session in the morning or afternoon. And we can discuss anything from our infection prevention products to our pump sizing, to our water heaters, to anything in between. All sorts of product that's available on the spec system, and I'll show you how you can find the products that we're discussing today at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, we'll pass it over to you, Corey. I'm excited to see the presentation. I know infection prevention is always a hot topic.
Great, thanks, Zach. And yeah, thanks to everyone for participating today. It should take about 45 minutes to go through, and if there's any questions, we'll have some time at the end, of course. And yeah, Zach said we'll get the link for the CEU circulated as well. So here are today's the learning objectives of the CEU. So first, we're going to discuss the problems faced by North American healthcare facilities related to hospital-acquired infections. Then we'll look at technologies that have been shown to have a dramatic impact on reducing hospital-acquired infections. Those are UV disinfection, copper coating on high-touch surfaces, and ozone disinfection and hand hygiene sinks. So by the end of the presentation, you'll have a deeper understanding of the benefits of ozonated water related to hand hygiene. And lastly, we'll discuss how ozonated water technologies benefit hospital cleanliness and improve patient outcomes. So first, knowing the basics about healthcare-acquired infection. So what is an HAI? HAI is short for healthcare-acquired infection or hospital-acquired infection, and we use these terms interchangeably. HAI is an infection that you get from a hospital, and there are 4 criteria to labeling this an HAI. It can meet one or all of this criteria. First of all, it can be acquired up to 48 hours after admission to a hospital. It's acquired up to 3 days after discharge from a hospital. It's acquired up to 30 days after an operation, or it's acquired in a hospital when you're admitted for something else other than the infection. And HAIs are among the leading causes of death in North America. In fact, when we look at both Canada and the US per capita, HAIs are estimated to be the third leading cause of death. So we'll be talking about HAI statistics throughout this presentation, and all these stats were from pre-COVID. So from the infection rates, death rates, financial impact, and cleaning procedures, all these are, keep in mind they're pre-COVID stats. So even though COVID has likely impacted these figures, we feel it's super important to know about hospital-acquired infections and their impact on healthcare patients and outcomes. So the stats for HAIs are quite alarming. Every 45 seconds, a hospital patient is infected with an HAI, and every 8 minutes, that infection is fatal. So on a given day, 1 in 31 hospital patients have at least one healthcare-acquired infection, and 1 in 10 of those infected patients will die from the HAI. And HAI is also expensive. The estimated average direct cost for an HAI treatment is roughly $30,000 per case. According to a University Health Network study, C. diff cases cost about $38,000 to treat. The direct treatment cost for hospital-acquired infections is estimated at $45 billion annually. The total cost of the healthcare system, to families, and the economy is even higher. And furthermore, HAIs have a domino effect on the whole healthcare system. Infected patients remain in hospital much longer before being discharged. Approximately 10% of the acute care beds in urban hospitals are occupied by patients who have had an increased length of stay due to an HAI. When patients remain in hospital longer due to an HAI, they end up taking valuable bed space. New patients end up being treated in hallways and lounges and squeezed into rooms that were designed for fewer patients. ER wait times are also increased because the ER is stacked up full of patients waiting for beds to free up. The three most common forms of HAI are C. diff, MRSA or staph, and caudy infections. Colostrum difficile or C. diff is one of the most frequent infections to occur in hospitals. C. diff exists at a vegetative state when it's inside the human body, and when it's outside the body, it can exist as a spore, which can easily become airborne and spread onto surfaces. And one important thing to note is that alcohol-based hand sanitizers cannot kill C. diff spores. And that's why it's so infectious in a hospital. C. diff spores get on, for example, the dispensers for hand rubs. If it's not a hands-free unit, that can be a mode of transmission because the hand rub will not kill it. MRSA is a form of staph infection that's resistant to many of the common antibiotics used to treat staph. So due to their resistance, they can easily spread throughout the hospital, causing alarming outbreaks. And catheter-associated urinary tract infections can occur when patients are catheterized for longer periods of time or if improper maintenance procedures are used. So next, we'll look at techniques hospitals and healthcare facilities use to prevent the spread of HAIs. And again, this presentation was initially created before COVID-19 pandemic hit. Hospitals have likely improved their room cleaning protocols since the start of the pandemic. So when it comes to cleaning, patient rooms are first decluttered and then cleaned and disinfected to be set up for the next patient. And this process is traditionally done with cloths and harsh chemicals. A manual daily clean takes approximately 15 minutes to do. Surfaces are spot cleaned since patients are still occupying the room. A room turnover or terminal clean is performed after a patient has left the hospital and prior to a new patient admitted into that room. A room turnover should take up to 30 minutes. And an isolation clean is the deep cleaning performed after a patient who has been in isolation or who has had an infection has left the room. And this process can take up to 45 minutes. With these manual processes, at best, fewer than 50% of the surfaces are properly disinfected using traditional cleaning methods, no matter if it's a daily clean, turnover, or post-isolation clean. Proper cleaning practices are important to help control the spread of infection in hospitals and healthcare settings. So we'll be exploring the technologies that can help prevent healthcare-acquired infections. These are emerging technologies, not because they're new, but because of their use in healthcare settings is becoming more and more prevalent. So first, we'll review UV disinfection. Again, UV disinfection is not new. Its antimicrobial properties were discovered about 200 years ago. UV light has been used for air, water, and surface disinfection since the late 1800s. Just for a fun throwback into this intro into UV disinfection, here pictured is a Finson's phototherapy apparatus being used to treat skin ailments in the late 1800s. Niels Finson won a Nobel Prize in medicine in 1903 for studying the effects of ultraviolet light to treat lupus, which is caused by tuberculosis. Now, fast forward to modern times, studies have shown that UV disinfection has a dramatic impact in reducing HAIs. UV light will disinfect all surfaces and is extremely effective when used in conjunction with traditional cleaning. Rooms disinfected with UV have shown reductions of HAIs by over a half. So there's a huge burden on environmental services or cleaning staff during outbreaks. A few slides ago, we noted that the average cleaning time for a terminal clean is 3 times that of a daily clean. So the graph on this slide here, it shows the overtime hours at a hospital for terminal cleans. The data represents the number of hours one hospital invested in cleaning each month. The 2 spikes on the graph note the increased terminal cleaning hours during a norovirus outbreak. After UVC disinfection technology was added, the number of cleaning hours dropped. So with fewer HAIs, there's fewer terminal cleans required. So from a hospital administration point of view, the potential payback for such a system is evident. So this is a graph representing some recent studies showing C. diff and how difficult it is to perform and to remove from hospital rooms with traditional cleaning methods. So before manual cleaning, patient rooms were tested for the presence of C. diff. And in those rooms, 7 of 21 rooms tested positive. After a manual cleaning was performed, 5 of 21 rooms still tested positive. And after UVC disinfection, none of the 21 rooms tested positive for C. diff. So it's quite evident UVC disinfection is an effective neutralizer of this bacterium. So next we'll review how copper can be used in healthcare applications. So like UV disinfection, copper's been known to be antimicrobial for a long time. The Egyptians were the first to mention the antimicrobial effects of copper in 2600 BC. They used copper vessels to sanitize drinking water and also to treat chest wounds. Copper is an EPA registered as a pesticide and can reduce CFU or colony forming units by 99.9% in less than 2 hours. So here are some real-world examples of the reduction of surface pathogens that occurred when hospitals changed high-touch surfaces to copper. This cancer center in New York changed the bed rails, food surface tray, and IV stands to copper-coated surfaces. And by doing so, it reduced the pathogens on those high-touch surfaces by 97%. And notice the high-touch surfaces are copper on the rooms on the right. HAIs were reduced by 58% in this VA medical center in South Carolina. Copper surfaces are a passive way to reduce bacteria load on high-touch surfaces when used in tandem with traditional cleaning. It's quite effective in lowering HAI occurrences. And here's a real-life non-healthcare example of a very high traffic area. Grand Central Station in New York City, about 750,000 people pass through this facility every day. Grand Central opened in 1913, so some of these fixtures can be over 100 years old. Some high-touch surfaces like handles, handrails at Grand Central are made of copper. Swabs were taken on a few of the high-touch surfaces, and you can clearly see the difference in CFU counts between copper and other touch surfaces. And here are some examples of copper touch products available on the market today. We're starting to see various antimicrobial copper medical equipment being put into practice, from stethoscopes to doorknobs and food trays. This is a great use of this material for high-touch surfaces. Copper is a great application for dry touch surfaces, but keep in mind they still need to be cleaned. One would think it'd be application for plumbing systems. The trouble is, once bacteria is killed, if it's not removed, it can create a layer over time that acts as a barrier against further effectiveness. So moving on from UV and copper disinfection, we'll review ozone technology for infection prevention. You may see a reoccurring theme here. These technologies are not new. Ozone's been used for water treatment for centuries. Ozone's a powerful and unique water disinfectant. Ozone's germicidal and rapidly destroys any waterborne viruses and bacteria with nearly unmatched speed. Very similar to chlorine, ozone oxidizes the bacteria and protozoa upon contact. The ozone penetrates the cell walls of the microorganisms and ruptures them on a structural level, and these microorganisms can't reproduce. Unlike UV disinfection, there's no reduced flow rate or extended contact time required for disinfection. Ozone works in a matter of minutes. Ozonated water is non-toxic to humans at the levels required for disinfection, and the ozone produced in the water stream reverts back to water within 20 minutes or so, depending on the water temperature. Ozonated water is extremely effective against all forms of bacteria such as Legionella, E. coli, C. diff, and more. And these are the most common bacteria that thrive in plumbing systems. And these are some time kill studies just showing the effectiveness against these bacteria. They were performed by third-party labs and show that electrochemical water disinfection or ozonated water can be very effective at reducing waterborne pathogens. And ozone is also very effective against mold and mildew-forming organisms. So here's an in-field example of the problems caused by mold and mildew growth in a wet environment. This is the inside of a hospital ice machine, a mere 3 months after a deep clean. And you can see the buildup of mold, mildew, and yeasts. And this type of buildup can be found in ice machines in hotels, cafeterias, gas stations, and restaurants. Some hospital ice machines use ozonated water for disinfection. You're looking at the inside of an ice machine months after a deep cleaning that uses ozonated water. And notice there's no signs of mold or mildew. These bacteria and viruses that are present in our environment, they're in our ice machines, in our plumbing, and in any number of bodies of water. They don't cause a lot of issues out in the wild, but when people who are sick or immunocompromised are exposed to these pathogens, it becomes a problem. So we have a solution to help mitigate waterborne pathogens. And that's by using electrochemical or ozonated water for hand hygiene. So it's now possible to wash your hands with water that has disinfecting properties. Using infused water with dissolved oxidants, including ozone, it can help reduce the number of bacteria present on hands, making hand washing more effective. Those same disinfecting properties will also help eliminate the sink as a source of bacteria outbreaks, but more on that later. So healthcare staff are quite well trained in the method and importance of proper hand washing. Often it's the unclean hands of the patients themselves that cause the transmission of infections. A study conducted in patients in hospitals using RFID tags showed that they only wash their hands about 70% of the time. And of those that do wash their hands, only about 30% of them use soap and are only lathering for about 10 seconds. So keep in mind, any bacteria left on their hands can continue to grow and double in less than 20 minutes. A university study performed on hand wash on untrained participants. So for the large percentage of people that only use water to wash their hands, the improvement in hand washing is evident. So tap water and mechanical action alone will remove about a third of the bacteria from your hands. Using soap and water removed just over 61%. And by using the same methods with ozonated water, over 80% of the bacteria was removed. So we're not recommending not to use soap. What this study shows is that behaviorally, if a patient doesn't use soap, the benefits can be profound. So now we'll learn just how dangerous hospital wastes can be and a couple methods to reduce its impact. It's been known for decades how important hand hygiene is to prevent the spread of bacteria and disease. Hospitals are designed with hand hygiene sinks placed throughout the hospital to help control outbreaks. Unfortunately, in some cases, hand hygiene sinks have actually contributed to the HAI problem. Poorly designed hand hygiene sinks have been shown to harbor and spread bacteria. This is the story behind the use of ozonated water for hand hygiene. So between 2004 and March 2006, a prominent hospital in Toronto experienced a deadly contagious Pseudomonas outbreak, leading to 17 deaths and 36 patients developing serious illness while under the hospital's care. Another prominent hospital experienced 66 patients infected or colonized by pesky drug-resistant bacteria from the fall of 2006 to the spring of 2011. This was a highly publicized instance where an outbreak was traced back specifically to a sink. And there were a couple factors that led to that, and we'll explore that next. So what makes waste traps, especially hospital waste traps, so dangerous? As we now know, waste traps are a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Hospital sink wastes are constantly being fed a nutrient-rich diet of germs, bacteria, bodily fluids, IV bags, you name it. Waste traps are nearly impossible to keep clean, and antimicrobial resistant bacteria continue to grow day in and day out. This is some research done by University of Virginia in 2017, proving bacteria can flourish in the P-traps of hospital sinks. They can also climb up from there to reach the drain area, and then all it takes is a splash of water, and the bacteria get splashed and grow wherever they land. This has been identified as one of the root causes of the outbreaks of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. This research also found that bacteria can climb very aggressively, up the pipe an average of 2.5 centimeters or an inch per day, and reach the drain within 7 days. Once the bacteria reaches the drain, all it takes is a poorly designed sink to enable this bacteria to be splashed up to 3 feet or 1 meter away onto users, patients, and nearby surfaces. This GIF illustrates the problem perfectly. When a faucet is installed on a sink and allowed to run into the drain, the water splashes upward from the same area where biofilm loves to grow. This video was taken with an iPhone, and it clearly shows what happens when a faucet is mounted directly above a drain. You see the water droplets flying everywhere, and those are just the ones you can see. The water that's hitting the drain can propel bacteria up from inside and back onto the person washing their hands and onto surrounding areas. When you think about the reason that the person's washing their hands, the last thing they're expecting is to have biofilm splashing back onto their hands. Another means to reduce splashing from hand hygiene sink is to incorporate geometry that will limit splashing from the surface interaction between the water stream. Shown here is a splash break feature, the principle similar to a ski jump landing, where the impact velocity is distributed out over time rather than instantaneous, as with a flat or slightly angled surface. This is a demonstration of this in practice. These videos show how a typical healthcare sinks with generally flat surfaces and poorly placed drains can splash water and bacteria everywhere. So first, bioluminescent powder was added around the waist of a conventional sink. This was used to represent bacteria that are living in that area. A UV light is used to make the powder glow. Lights were turned on, a user washed their hands in this conventional sink, and with the lights back off, you can see the effect. These videos depict the before and after hand washing of each sink. And this test demonstrates the known transmission method of bacteria in the waste splashing onto the user and surrounding surfaces. And here's the test duplicated with a sink that has splash break features and an offset waist. The same test was performed by adding luminescent powder around the waist and having hand hygiene performed. And you can see the end result, and the difference is night and day. So as an engineer, there's only so much that we can do to optimize sink and faucet for healthcare. Got to take into consideration human behavior, take into account how a user can wash their hands in the most optimal way. we can design a fixture to force the user to have their hands in the best position for hand washing and help control the splashing behavior. So this study here shows the difference between a standard sink and one with splash control features. The sink on the left has splash control features, and on the right is a commonly specified vitreous china sink. And the goal of this experiment was to show how much splashing happens in a real-world scenario. So they put up white absorbent paper and plexiglass shields to the left and right of the sinks, and dressed the participants in painter coveralls and a mask. Their hands were covered in washable tempera paint, and they were instructed to wash their hands. And the sinks weren't cleaned in between participants to simulate the result. You can clearly see the difference between splash reduction on the sink on the left and the sink on the right. So earlier we learned about hand hygiene with electrolyzed or ozonated water. In addition to the benefits of hand washing, the larger benefit of using this treated water is that it will help keep the sink waste free of bacteria and biofilm. Hospitals will often use harsh chemicals and labor-intensive cleaning protocols like steam to help control the biofilm, but these methods aren't always effective. The use of oxidized water with ozone helps prevent biofilm from forming and spreading in the first place. So it makes sense to use ozonated water for hand washing. Ozonated water will help kill bacteria, even if soap isn't used. It improves the effectiveness of hand hygiene regardless of the technique. And as these mixed oxidants in the water run through the waste, it will help keep it free of bacteria and biofilm. At the bottom is an example of a hand wash sink in a patient room. It has a laminar flow spout with the ozonated technology built right in. So in this type of application, I'll explain how this technology works a little bit further. So if you remember back to high school chemistry, you probably learned water is comprised of 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. So what's shown here is when you oscillate a low-powered DC current through specialized electrodes, you can separate the hydrogen and oxygen from the water itself. The free hydrogen and oxygen molecules react with the water chemistry, and in doing so, you create trace amounts of mixed oxidants from the water supply. These mixed oxidants, many of which are reactive oxygen species, include ozone, hydrogen peroxide, and also hypochlorite from the chlorine content, which is added by the municipality. So in this method, no chemicals are added to the water. It's simply reorganized to become hostile to pathogens. So this was a study that was presented at the Society for Healthcare Epidemiology of America at their national conference in 2018. Contaminated sinks and drains are rapidly emerging as a cause of healthcare-associated infection, particularly in ICU areas. Drain contamination is particularly difficult to eradicate due to the propensity of biofilm formation in piping. Testing was done at the Cleveland VA hospital to study the effectiveness of ozonated water in eradicating bacteria, as well as a new concerning superbug, Candida auris. In their study demonstrated total elimination of the strainer after 2 days of use and total elimination of the entire trap after 9 days of use. And they concluded that this technology has the potential to reduce the number of sink-associated infections in hospitals. So to close out this section on hand washing with ozone and mixed oxidants, we'll address some of the frequently asked questions. First of all, is the water safe to drink? Yes, it is, but for infectious control purposes, hand wash basins aren't to be used for a source of drinking water. And secondly, warm water is not all that pleasant to drink. This process does change water chemistry, but it's well within levels allowed within potable water systems. The water produced by the sink won't corrode pipes. The levels of ozone produced in hand washing applications are extremely small and at approximately 10 parts per billion. And at temperatures used for hand washing, they have a half-life of only a couple minutes. And that being said, yeah, does water temperature matter? Yes. So if only producing ozone, cold water is much more effective. So in the ice machine example, that type of ozone generator only produces ozone. But for hand washing and a warmer application, the electrolytic cell mixed oxidants are produced, and it's not affected by water temperature. Ozone and mixed oxidants are generally produced electrochemically, and depending on the ozone used, the result is either Again, only ozone like the ice machines or mixed oxidants for hand washing. Colder water will produce more ozone with a longer half-life, and warmer water will still produce some ozone, but the other mixed oxidants that are produced are not sensitive to temperature and account for the majority of the efficacy in reducing pathogens. Ozone's not added to the water, it's created electrochemically. So ozone molecules revert back to water and dissipate. So there's no danger of off-gassing in this type of ozone production.
One of the questions that always comes up for me when talking about this, whenever we're doing these webinars and having this conversation, is it seems like a number of the recommendations or the number of the products available are more point of use style versus a whole system. Is there a reasoning behind that? Is there a reason that they're pushing more for point of use versus the whole system approach?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Do you remember back the slide when it was had the little video showing how it's produced and the generator running?
Yeah.
Because it creates bubbles, it has to be produced after the solenoid valve, or else it'll create pressure. So it's before the solenoid valve, it'll create gas in the line, and when the water opens, it'll spurt and spray everywhere for a little bit.
Gotcha.
So that's why it's got to be point of use. And also, if the levels that it's produced are quite small, so if it's produced upstream, by the time it gets to a fixture, it may have dissipated all the or a lot of the oxidants by that time too.
Yeah, that was the part that always made sense more to me, is the fact that it only has, like you mentioned, 20 minutes, right, until it starts dissipating the ozone. So for a whole system approach, that's going to be difficult to generate enough to really make it effective.
That's correct. Yeah. All right. So why the urgency for healthcare? So in North America, again, the annual costs of HAIs are estimated at $45 billion per year. They account for more deaths than car accidents, breast cancer, and HIV/AIDS combined. And it's led to long-term disability and increased resistance of microorganisms. Traditional cleaning methods are notoriously inefficient for decontamination in a healthcare environment. But experts feel the adoption of these technologies, UV disinfection, copper touch surfaces, and ozonated water can effectively reduce the risk of HAIs by 80%, drastically minimizing the number of HAI fatalities. It's frequently stated in healthcare it takes 17 years from innovation to implementation. The hospital overcrowding crisis of today and the ongoing HAI crisis means the time for action is now. So that's the end of the CEOs. I guess we can open up to the floor if there's any questions from anyone.
Yeah, I guess the first question, I'll start as we're waiting for more questions to come in from the chat. What's the adoption been like from healthcare, locations? As I know, this has been around for a few years now, right? Like there's got to be some installations or case studies where it's been installed, right?
Yeah, it's where it hasn't been adopted. It's been, they love the sink. Aside from the ozone technology, sorry if you're thinking about talking about the sink specifically.
Sure.
Yeah, the users like because there's not a conventional faucet. There's a much larger room to wash their hands, and not have water splash back on you. So the user experience is enhanced. Infection control really likes the features of the sink. They do the swabbing. A lot of times they use ATP meters, and it's night and day compared to a standard sink. So the facilities that have installed them love them. There's also, always it is new technology. It is more expensive than a standard hand hygiene sink. So there's other factors at play.
Mm-hmm.
So it is we're growing year over year in this category, and so it'll just take time for implementation.
I see a couple questions coming in. Just as we're getting prepared for that, have you noticed any differentiation, or I guess could you comment on the differentiation of the codes and standards around hand hygiene sinks in Canada versus the US?
In Canada, we have it started with Z8000 and then it put into the National Plumbing Standard Z317. Uh, we haven't really seen a federal standard in the US to date, so it seems state by state have their own kind of guidelines and best practices. So that's kind of the differentiation that we've seen. Canada is more of a national guideline, where in the US it seems to change state by state.
And one thing we wanted to highlight is for anyone looking for the CEU accreditation, I just put the link in the chat field. And just a note that to receive your credit, just click the link and use the code that we put in there, C6 lowercase c 9 lowercase k. And you'll be able to self-report if you have an accreditation that you're trying to meet. I know, again, for the rest of the Canadians that may not need the full CEU accreditation, we'll certainly be sending out our certificates of attendance on Friday per usual. And then we had another question coming in asking about the maintenance requirements for, I guess, the ozonated ozone generation.
Sure. The current style is basically maintenance free. The current is oscillated back and forth to stop any hard water buildup. They've been tested in a different application, but running electrolysis for nonstop for 8 years, and it didn't show any degradation of the electrodes. Within a hand washing application, it's being turned on and off with use, so it should last. We say 8 to 15 years, but it should last a long time. Mm-hmm. So the only maintenance basically is the solenoid valve to turn the water on and off.
And then for the basin itself, and really hand hygiene sinks in general, because I can't imagine the basin with the splash break or any of the other hand hygiene sinks in the market have different maintenance standards. Are you aware of any sort of maintenance standard for hand hygiene sinks specifically?
Not specifically, no. Just it seems like a lot of hospital regions have approved cleaners that are used on them. It's really the only change that we see area to area, but they're all meant to be cleaned and wiped down and maintained, regardless of if it's ozonated water or not. But there's nothing specific required for the one of these hand hygiene sinks with the splash break features.
Yeah, I would say from my experience, it's general hospital practices. And as Corey mentioned, the different healthcare groups may have different cleaning products that they're using. And it's important to make sure that whatever cleaning product you're using matches well with the product that's installed. That can be particularly true if you have obviously one of the products that we were showing there has an integrated faucet, integrated water flow for hand washing, versus call it conventional, more understood standard faucet that may be chrome plated, which would be reactive to certain cleaners. So always keep that in mind with any of the harsh chemicals and cleaners that are being used. And then another question coming in, are the hand hygiene sinks, and I would guess more so the ozone generation, sensitive to supply water temperature? And I guess could you go, and I know that there's some temperature specific requirements, so maybe you could highlight that in a little bit more detail.
Sure, yeah. So for the hand hygiene sink, it's not as sensitive to water temperature coming in. It's ozone's really the main component that is temperature sensitive. Mm-hmm. But in the hand hygiene application, because it's a lot of the efficacy is from hyperchlorite, the chlorine generation, and hydrogen peroxide and other oxidants that they're not sensitive to temperature. So that's why that type of
a recommended temperature for the ozone generation, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So if we're to use like warm water on an ice machine ozone generator, the output will be drastically reduced.
Understood. All right, and I guess if you want to stop sharing for a second, I'll take over the screen and show we can find some of the products on the ATS spec system. And if any additional questions come in, feel free to dive in and let me know. So yeah, if this is your first time joining one of our ATS webinars, it might be your first time seeing the ATS spec tool, which is one of the sponsored by our manufacturer, Franke. This is a product selection tool that amalgamates a number of manufacturers across North America to help us put together product selections, keep everything up to date and code compliant all across different provinces and states and the building codes that apply to it. It recommends products based on your application, so you get the right product in the right application. So if you're looking at a healthcare project that you're building, the Franke products will be available, and the hand hygiene sinks will be available. It is a user-based activation, free for designers to sign up, whether you're an engineer, architect, and that is in essence paid for by the manufacturers that are sponsoring to be on our system. So once you get logged in the first time, it'll remember your password, and it'll put you into a account with the rest of your team. So if you can log in as a firm, share projects, share masters, and work together collaboratively across multiple offices. There's some additional information that's available in our Learning Hub before you even get logged in. We have our templates, which recommends products based on applications. So, if you're looking, and we're building this out, this is a living guide as we continue to get our templates organized and put together. We've got, I think, 8 so far, 6 that are loaded so far. Long-term care, agent in place, mechanical room products, high-end offices. We're working on the anti-ligature one and the hospital design guide as well, where the products that we're discussing today will be included. I referenced earlier in the session that all of our ATS webinars from the ATS University series are available with the recorded systems. So if you go to ATS-webinars, you'll be able to go back and look at any of these sessions. And of course, if you want more detail, if you have any questions on the product, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can help you get set up with a new session directly for your team. Once you're logged in, this is your dashboard, where you can create a quick spec, a project folder, or a new master. The master is in essence projects that you're working on consistently. So if you are working in education and you have a school board that you're signed up to do, say 10, 20, 30, however many projects this year, we would work with you and help you get a master set up that matches the school board standards, so that all you have to do is copy into a new project and download your documents, maybe revise a couple of selections here or there. The school board standard may have, say, 10 different types of sinks, and the individual location you're working on only needs 3 of them. We can show you how you can edit, revise, and store them here, which is going to make sure that your product selections are always kept up to date. So if there's ever a discontinuance or a model number's changed, or maybe your standards built in Ontario and you're building a project in BC, so you want to make sure it complies with the local building code, that's why you want to have your selections stored online on the system. Once you hit new project, you can see it's going to ask you for a project name, country, location. This is how you're going to apply that rule engine that I mentioned, where it's recommending the right product and meeting local building code. As well, you can see we've got our templates that I showed earlier that are available here. So you could either use your internal master to start a project, or you could use one of our ATS templates, which is in essence like an ATS master. It's our recommendation. Now, a lot of people are saying to us, well, we've got most of our project, but I'm just looking for a quick selection. I just want a single sink, a single faucet, a single hand hygiene sink, we can say. You can just put in a quick title, hit finish, and you're into the product selection. This is not going to have the rule engine because we don't have the location. So we can't recommend products based on the local, barrier-free code or anything like that. But it does help you get into the product selection as fast as possible. We can get into our sink. If you need like an LBS 6808, a very standard, frequently used sink from Franke, You could search for it, configure your selection, or select the most popular configuration, and then start adding this product. And in a matter of seconds, our system's always going to recommend the rest of the selection that you may need. So you might need a faucet, or we recommend a P-trap, recommend supplies with this. But if you just need the single sink, you could always bypass that, hit complete, and simply download very quickly. We can hit our selector fixture, hit download, and download the written spec, the fixture schedule, the manufacturer spec sheet, the Revit, or submittal documentation right away. Now, one thing I did want to show, though, is utilizing masters or templates. That's a very quick selection for a single item, but the reason you set up a project is because you may have multiple iterations and revisions of your selection over the next couple of months. I know I've worked hand in hand with engineers on projects, and we'll use these product groups. As you can see here, we've got a product group already set up. I could add a new product group, and this may be, Rev 10, 11, 23, or Rev 15 for the 15th version of project fixtures, where we're doing round after round of review with the architect and with the owner group to decide, I want this faucet or that faucet or this drain, this water heater size. We've changed our counts, so we've got to revise our interceptors, or we've come back to the discussion, and we do in fact need a submersible pump. All those different products are available on the system here, and you could add them to your project file and count your revisions that way. We also have people commonly set up, and I'll get it set up here to show some of the functionality. We can call this Franke. We'll call it Healthcare Fixtures and Drainage. You can see it's a common title for me, as it's saving the title as we go. I'm going to set that up, and we'll show you how quickly and easily, if you have a template that you're working on. So I'm into my ATS templates here from the toolbar, and I could search for hospital or healthcare or mental health or long-term care or educational office. All those different applications are going to have a template guide, and you can see we break them down here. We can have manual fixtures, hardwired fixtures. If you're on the architectural side, you have all your accessories, amenities, drainage, mechanical items, fire protection prevention, your pipes and fittings, HVAC, that plaster sink that we were talking about earlier in the day, Corey, even all the scrub sinks and neutralizers and interceptors. So you can go through, either select all, or go and say, yes, I need a scrub sink. Yes, I need a plaster sink. Yes, I need my pipe and fitting standard and all the pipe supports. I am going to be doing a drainage selection for this. And this is the owner group has requested, say, all manual fixtures. Or I can even just go through and say I need a barrier-free and a general use wall-hung manual fixture. I don't need bariatric. I do need a urinal. And I'm going to copy that all to the project file that we've been setting up. So once you create your project file, these are just the various ways that you can start putting product into your project file. I'm going to copy it into the group that we set up, or you could create a new product group and hit copy. And that's going to take all those selections, the 20, 30, 50, however many that you're working on, and pop them into the project file, which you could always access again from here on the toolbar on the left. But you can see again, so this fixtures and drainage category has been filled up. I can then go in and revise it. I can change the order. Let's say I want this at the top. I can change this to go to 0 and put it up at the top. I could change the name. I could change the particular fixture even. Once it's into my project file, I can edit it as much or as little as I choose. Now, as well, you can simply go through, once you've set up your project file, and hit the plus button and go through the manual selection as well. So if we want to find a hand hygiene sink, I can go into my basin category. I could search by the model name. We know the MediFlow is a product that we're looking for. I could filter by manufacturer. If I want to see all the products that Franke has to offer on the system, I could go through and sort by that. I could sort by my mounting, if I want wall hung. You can see the product that we've been talking about today is already showing up here. We've got the MediFlow hand hygiene sinks. Then you can review the features and see, okay, all this detail, the flow rate, the information. You can configure it to select your components that you may need. You can hit spec sheet to view more detail in the manufacturer specific spec sheet. And all of the manufacturer spec sheets are built into the system. So this is true for all the various products that you see here. You can get the manufacturer spec sheet all in one place. Learn more about the sizing details, see any additional options, say, okay, yes, this is what I'm looking for, and hit add product. Again, the system's going to recommend the necessary components to configure a complete selection. So here you can see, we don't need a faucet because it's got the integrated faucet, the ozonated faucet that we talked about. But we do need a trap and we do need a carrier. So I'm going to go through and select the 8902 CBSON. This is a SaniGuard coated trap to help prevent bacteria and biofilm build up in the trap like we talked about. Just going to the nth degree. Of course, you can go a more cost-effective trap as well, but being that it's healthcare, we want the full one. And this basin comes with has a specific manufacturer recommended carrier, and it's selected here and showing that this is our best option. Of course, again, you hit spec sheet, you can see the list price is provided, and we'll hit add product. And we'll finish off the selection. We can either hit complete and go back to that edit drawing page where we can add additional products. We can change the titles, we can change things around, or we can add another product. Say we want to, we've got our hand hygiene sinks, but there's also a prep room where we need a 316 standard drop-in sink. So if you know the model number, you can search for it. If you want to search and filter down by compartment, we can go single compartment, the different installations, material types. So, being that we're in a healthcare environment, we may want 316 coated products. So I can search for 316 and it's going to show me only the 316 products. And you can see our LBS 6808 316, which is going to have resistance against the acids in blood to prevent pitting of the stainless steel sink. You can see once I configure the product selection, the list price updates, the model number updates, we are configuring the actual product selection, not just specifying a base model. I think that's one of the pieces that really separates the ATS spec system from the other products in the market that assist with product selection. As well, we do have nice features like this. You've got all these different configurations that you could put together, but if we go select our most popular, you're going to know that we do a ton of healthcare because our most popular product selection is the 1.5 GPM GN8FC, which is a flow control, 8-inch flow control faucet with a laminar flow at the base of the spout and a planed end outlet, which is the most common product for healthcare. Now, one other thing I'll highlight here in our drawing settings, we can add in a label. I could call this SK1, sink. You can adjust your sequence, like I mentioned. You can add notes. You can finish off the selection, but I'm going to hit complete because the last thing I want to show here is downloading either the entire project or just downloading a single group. So you can see as well, this one's called HWS Nightingale. If I want to edit this and call this HWS MediFlow, and I can change it so that this goes first, hit save. And then I'll download this product group and not the whole rest of the project. You can hit schedule. You can see that we've got different options for the schedules, our written specs. We can include that as well. manufacturer spec sheet or the Revit file or a 3-part spec or a short spec or product brochure, all these different options. And I see I'm running a little bit at a time as it is. So as always, I try to pre-download the product selection that I'm going to be going over. You can see just before the webinar started, I downloaded. This is one of the few places where you get multiple formats all in one download. So we can pull up our infection prevention submittal, which is the package that we were looking at today. You can see it's got my logo on it. If this was your account, it would have your firm's logo. And our market development team will be happy to work with you to update any logos or clean up your account as needed. Submittal documents. We can pull up the fixture spec or fixture schedule. Of course, the written spec as well. Full written spec that is all just in Word format. So you can copy and paste this into your internal written standards, and you can edit or add alternatives, or maybe you want to take out a McGuire P-trap, that's fine. We understand that there's other manufacturers in the market that you may prefer, and this is just going to tie into, we'll help with what we can help with and not worry about the rest. So in the time there that we were talking and just pulling up a couple files, this is fully downloaded, ready to go. You can download all the files. And yeah, we can jump back to the project here. Again, I'll show you some of the categories. So if we're talking about our Franke infection prevention, and if you have, you can see I've got the sink and the basin pinned here. These are my favorite, my most common selections. But I could go through and pin backflow or pin my backrest, my carriers, all the various products. We have a ton of different product on here now. And of course, it's going to be hard to remember that we've got the floor sinks and floor drains or the access doors and floor doors. So pin your favorite, reach out to our team. We can help you get set up with a master if need be. We can keep on going through pinning our favorite categories, and then our pumps can be easily accessible here at the top. Our roof drains can be easily specifiable. We can go directly into our kitchen sinks and specify all the various Franke sinks that we know and love, from scrub sinks to scullery sinks to drop-in, double bowl. All the various products are here and available and easy to specify. So with all that, I guess thank you very much for those that have stuck around. I know that demo can be a little bit tedious if you're here every week and joining us every week. But it's always good to show people for the first time how easy it is can be find the products that we talk about during these ATS University sessions. That was fantastic, Corey. Appreciate your time and appreciate your detailed information there on preventing infections, which I think is still very high profile and important design practice. If there's any further questions, I'll stick around for a minute or two. But if not, then thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you'll join us again next week as we continue to dive into the healthcare topics that we have planned this month. Bye for now, all. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, great. So, yeah.